In the grand scheme of things, there are 4 mascots, but this is the 5th mascot because, well, somebody's got to have 5, right? It's a hot stove edition of the 5th mascot. Look who's here. Royalty. Not you. John Fay, the legendary beat writer of the Cincinnati Reds and now the newest member of WCPO.com.
Welcome to the
John.
team.
It's good to see
Thank you, thank you.
John brings a sort of calm, a sort of erudite grandeur to the proceedings. Don't you think so, Keenan?
SAT words, I'm not even going to touch those.
Yeah, but he
Never
does.
touch them.
I feel clean just sitting here. It's unbelievable. Of course, we have our backbench, the great guys that make this all possible, led by the brains of the outfit, Matt Lucan. Matt, good to see you.
I said and girl.
Yeah, okay.
And girl.
You
Libby.
need to-
Well, Libby,
female.
Libby is the beauty of the operation, but
Yeah.
Matt's the brains of the
Libby's here.
operation. So Matt's the beauty of the
You
operation.
keep-
Then we might as well just
yeah.
shut this thing down right now.
I want to get like a lawyer to file a disclaimer in court that that's not really true, but okay.
Well, I guarantee in this town you won't have trouble finding one. And Mike Strotman, who is left glove Mike, right?
Yeah,
is that
left
the glove
glove.
where the glove goes on the Bengal sidelines?
Yeah, I hold the battery. Yeah.
All that. And then to the far right there is the guy that invented the internet. He and Al Gore went out and got drunk one night, and then the next night Mike Cannon invented the internet with Al Gore. It's amazing the synergy that we have here. You didn't know that story?
I did, and actually you kind of hit me to it a little bit on our Bengals show, so I was really appreciative of that.
See,
Learned so much.
Al Gore was going to Harvard, and Mike was going to the Harvard on the Hocking River, and the two of them just kind of met one night.
Exactly.
Good to see you. All right, so let's get to this thing. John, Redsfest begins tomorrow. The roster is virtually the same as when it was at the end of the year. I know Brian Pena is no longer with the team, but I mean, are you surprised there's been this lack of inactivity?
No, not really. Mostly things don't happen until the winter meetings. This year it was a little different. You got some trades during the general managers meeting. You saw Kimbrel move, Craig Kimbrel, the closer. I think, they might have been looking at him and Chapman. I think the reason the Red Sox went with Kimbrel is he's under control for 2 more years after that. Chapman's basically 1 year after this, or just this year. So. But yeah, I think they're trying. I think they're trying to move Chapman. I think they're looking at moving Bruce. I think things will happen. There's no real rush to do things.
Right. And I don't know, have you heard about these things? They're called smartphones.
Yeah.
You can get the WCPO app and put it on this thing, and apparently, if you hold it the right way, if you tap it, then this app comes up and you can listen to the show. Have you heard about this, Matt? This stuff you can get here?
I was at the meeting, yes.
Yeah.
I heard about it.
So you get the app, and then if you don't have the app, it's on iTunes. It's on.
You can watch Netflix on your phone. You know that?
I didn't know that. Really?
You can watch Netflix
Did you know
on your
that?
phone.
You
I
can
didn't
even
know
watch
that.
Reds baseball games.
You can read Reds baseball games.
And us, most importantly.
Yeah.
But anyway, the most important thing is get the app, and if you can't, it's up there 24/7, 364 on WCPO.com. It shuts down for maintenance on a random Thursday in February. Let's talk about Dick Williams. Why is Walt Jocketty still lingering around here? Don't you feel, or wouldn't you feel uncomfortable if you were Dick Williams that you had this like Luke, I am your father, standing over you, not being able to do your job?
Well, I think it was an amicable move. Walt stays on. I think that, kind of passing the baton. Walt's been there so long. So, and the thing that Walt has done well here is trades. So I think he brings something to that. He did very well in his trades last year at the winter meeting. So, I think he wanted to work another year, and then he kind of fades in the background. But it is an interesting dynamic. It's, who has the final call in things.
But I mean, if they get into a room and there's a decision that's got to be made, who makes the decision? Is it Dick Williams?
That's
I don't know.
Yeah, that's the dynamic. I think with these big decisions, the final word comes down to Bob Castellini in a lot of cases, whether they're going to trade.
Right.
Say they're talking about trading Todd Frazier.
Right.
That's going to be Bob Castellini's final call. They might be able to say we're going to be able to get these players for Frazier, but ultimately I think big moves like that are Bob's call.
How do you see it changing under Dick, I guess, as opposed to Walt?
Well, I think the biggest thing is they're going to be more sabermetrics driven. It's pretty clear they haven't hired him yet, but they have 2 more positions open for analytic guys. Ooh. They're looking for people with backgrounds in mathematics and things like that. So Dick is obviously more involved in the Sabre side. Walt's more of an old school
Traditional
guy,
scouting.
so
Yeah.
I think they'll move more that way.
Well, that's the way the business is going.
Yeah. But I think if you look at, I did a story when they hired these consultants, and I looked at Kansas City. Kansas City has, or not consultants, but analytic guys. I think Kansas City has 2. The Reds will be up to 6.
Wow.
How many is too many at this point?
Yeah, I think there's still debate on what Kansas City is not a sabermetrics team.
Right.
And I think baseball is so constantly changing. 5-6 years ago, the Yankees were the model where they wore out pitchers. They got to the middle relief pitching. Now you saw Kansas City win the World Series when guys go up and swing at the first pitch all the
Exactly.
time. So
Hack away.
Well, I think it's going to be, as you say, it's different. It's going to be more sabermetrics driven, but I think you're going to see probably more of an emphasis, and I'm guessing here, more of an emphasis on fundamentals, drafting players that they see have an upside and a certain skill. How do you see that playing out in actual getting the player into the system into the major league level? Does it change?
the scouting director's been the same. Wayne Kriske brought him in, Chris Buckley. Mm-hmm. I don't see that changing. I think, Dick Williams will make more moves when he gets completely in charge, and maybe you see some movement in player development and that kind of thing.
Do you have a feel, John, at all for the relationship between those two? I mean, it's like Ken said. I mean, do you think Dick Williams wants to do things that maybe he thinks Walt isn't on board with, and he's going to wait a year or two before he starts to try to make that imprint? Or do you think that they're sort of on the same page as they move forward?
It's hard to say. I know that Dick Williams didn't agree with every move Walt made, which you would expect. The other thing about Dick Williams is he's also part of the ownership group. His father and uncle are
Right.
both owners, so it's a little different dynamic than you usually have with a guy that's come in from the outside. And
Yeah, you could go tell Dad. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, I guess you could probably do something to that sense. But you know how the team finished last year. It was not good. We have the standings I want to put up because I think it's important just to look at where we are in this conversation about where this team is. I mean, you've got the gold standard in the Cardinals. You've got two organizations that are largely regarded as the up-and-comers in baseball. The Brewers are whatever they are, and then there are the Reds. And it just seems like when you crater like that, and you could, there were some key injuries on this team last year, but when you crater to that effect, it's almost like you want a completely new touch in there, because you can't go back and revisit what was great and say, oh, gee, I hope that happens again. I would think they almost want to have something new down there. I would think so.
well, I think the question is how low do you go? Say they trade Frazier and Bruce and Chapman. Mm-hmm. They don't have guys in the minors that are going to come up and put up the kind of numbers that Bruce and Frazier did. I don't even know who would play third base if Frazier got traded. Maybe Suarez.
Yeah.
But you're taking a great deal of power, a very reliable defender out of the lineup. Do they want to do that? Is Bob Castellini willing to lose 105 games?
Well, but you and I have had this discussion before. Frazier is going to make $7.5 million this year. I think. I'm not sure, you'd know better than I, but I think they've got one more year with him. They can offer arbitration.
Yeah, they can offer.
So let's just say in 2017 he goes to $12 million. I don't think that's an unrealistic figure. Now you got a guy after 2016 that's probably looking for his last big contract with numbers in excess of $100 million. I mean, if you're Bob Castellini, if I'm him, I'm saying, when I get good again, this guy's going to be too expensive for me.
Right.
That's how I'd look at it.
But the other thing is, how much more value would he have by trading him now as opposed to next year?
Right.
I think, because I think if you do that, if you trade Bruce and Frazier, it's going to be really bad. I think that they have the capability of losing 105 games.
Sure.
And this franchise has only lost 100 games one time in its history. So I think that's a hard thing.
It is. You got to sell tickets.
Right.
The bottom line is you got to sell tickets. But on the other side of it is, I think they misplayed to a great degree, Chapman from jump. You and I think, have a disagreement on this, but he should have been a starting pitcher. And if he wasn't a starting pitcher, he shouldn't have dictated the rules of him staying here, which is what he did. Now they're boxed into a corner. They got this guy for just another year under control before he really hits the jackpot. They should have traded him last offseason. If you're going to part ways with Latos and Simon, and you're basically saying we're not going to compete in 2015, even though we're going to say we are, they should have gone the rest of the way and dealt him and got at least somebody that could help you relatively soon. They're not going to get anybody that's going to help them relatively soon.
Yeah, he's a luxury. I mean, that's like renting an apartment and having a Bentley in the driveway. I mean,
Well, John does that.
I mean, what's the point of having
the
an
Delhi
all-star-
Arms with his Bentley. But you know what I'm saying? They should have just gone into it full bore last year and say, okay, it didn't work. Let's try this.
But again, I go back to Bob Castellini. He's very optimistic, and he wants to win so badly. So I think sometimes he's overly optimistic, and he thinks things could go right.
Yeah.
And don't you think part of it is, though, he just doesn't want to be seen as the guy who puts the team on the field that loses 105 games? I mean,
He did this year. He lost 98 this year.
I know, but I mean, he doesn't want to concede that going in. He still feels like he's a part of this community. He's the kind of guy that a lot of fans like because they think he has an emotional, vested interest in the whole thing. And for him to just say, we're going to write this off for a couple of years. Everybody's got to suck it up, and we're going to be like the Mets in 63 or whatever.
Mike Cannon, Mike wants to win.
I think going into the season, I mean, you have to look at that this team, I don't think most people were projecting them to be nearly as bad as they were. And you look at some of the things that went wrong for this team, they were kind of outside of your control. You lose your cleanup batter, you lose your number 2 starter in Bailey, essentially for the entire season. I mean, you take those 2 spots off of most teams, and they're going to not play up to expectations. Are they going to maybe lose 98 games? Probably not. But I think there were a lot of factors that kind of contributed. I mean,
They were picked to
Yeah.
finish last by most teams, most
fourth or
publications.
fifth in the
but I mean, I think you look
But
at.
you're right, maybe not as bad as the
And
last that they were.
but
You
here's
look at
the
a team that the second half of the season, they started a rookie starting pitcher every single game.
But
I mean,
here's-
that's crazy.
Here's your question: if all these guys stayed healthy, would they have contended for a playoff spot?
Not with the way the Cubs kind
No.
of
I mean,
came out of nowhere.
I mean, if everybody was healthy,
Right.
what would this team would have won? 83?
Yeah, maybe 80 games.
I mean, really, that's what you got to ask yourself, I think.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is you don't know going in that the Cubs were going to be that good.
Exactly.
I mean, they
No one
brought
saw
up
that
2
coming.
rookies that were probably the 2 best rookies.
In a generation almost.
Yeah.
Well, besides
So that-
Trout and Harper, of
So
course.
it kind of went sideways. And I think the other thing, Castellini they were able to convince him to make the trades of Cueto and Leake at the deadline, and that's what caused them to lose 98
Right.
games. They weren't a 98 loss team if those guys stay, but as Mike said, when you run out a rookie every time, that had never happened before, and you saw why. It
Well,
just-
and they're going to run out a lot of second-year guys. This
Oh,
year.
yes,
I mean,
yeah,
really.
yeah.
I mean, I know Bailey is all seashells and balloons about his arm, but it'd be great if he's back by opening day. But I don't know if that's a given either.
Why is everyone so scared of the rebuilding word here? As it seems to me like it's already undergoing. It's already started. Why is everyone so scared to admit that, hey, this is a rebuilding franchise, and we need to pull the Band-Aid off instead of just easing it off by trading Cueto and trading Leake, not just blow the thing up?
Yeah, I think there's reluctance. One, I think if you don't win in this town, you don't draw, and it's first and foremost, it's a business. I mean, they just want to break even, but if you start having 8,000 people there on weeknights,
Right.
you're not.
No.
It's really hard to break
Right.
even, and
So that Astros model is something that they're not going to go for at all.
no, I don't think so.
I don't think they're where the Astros were, though. I mean, you still look at you look at
lost
they still
100
have
games.
yeah, but I know, but you got a core of good players here. You got I think a guy that's one of the top 10, maybe it might be high, maybe one of the top 20 in the entire game in Votto. You've got a really, really talented shortstop who looked like he was ready to bust out
Until he
before
got
he got hurt.
hurt,
You've got a young catcher. Hopefully, he's physically okay. The center fielder is still raw, but I think he can work with him.
I'm just looking at the neighborhood that they're in.
But
With
the
Cubs and
Astros were a lot worse 5 years ago than the Reds are right now.
I think getting back to that rebuilding question, I think one of the things is, and maybe John can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think one of the things is, I think fans here were burned so many times in the 2000s of saying, "Oh yeah, wait till 2003 when the new stadium opens. We're going to contend then." And
Griffey won't get hurt this year.
They put out horrible teams for so long, and they kept getting sold this bill of goods that, "Oh yeah, 2 more years, we're going through this rebuilding process. We're going to be good again. We're going to be good again." And the ownership and management weren't putting out. I mean, they were putting out probably worse rosters than this roster was. It just didn't play out the right way.
I just don't think they're going to be able to keep up with the Jeffersons. I mean, the Cubs are going to be, World Series contender for the next 5 years. The Cardinals are never going away, as much as I would like them to. They're never going away. The Pirates still have McCutchen. They still have Garrett Cole. At what point, how are they going to break that glass ceiling in the NL Central?
I think things change so rapidly in baseball. If we were sitting here at this time last year, would you have thought the Mets had any chance to go to the World Series? I think that's the hope of the Reds. If these young pitchers all turn out to be what they think they can be and hit their ceiling, then maybe they can turn it around faster than people expect. Will that happen? You never know. But
of course.
And I think, again, back to the rebuilding thing, that was under a different ownership where those teams. I think when Castellini took over, he had the right idea. His heart was in the right place, and he was very impatient. He wanted to do it quickly. Then he kind of backed off a little bit. They got this group that came together that was very good. They developed their own players, and they had a really good chance, I think, in 2012 to win it all. It didn't happen.
Work.
And they're recovering from that still.
Yeah.
Because if they had just gone to the World Series in 12, say, the season tickets go up, then maybe they can afford Cueto and Leak, and it's just a whole different thing.
Yeah.
Right.
But
so we got Chapman, Frazier, and Bruce. I think if my gut tells me that Chapman and Bruce are gone and that they'll hold on to Frazier, what is your?
I would agree with that. I think Chapman is definitely gone. I think that they have to do it.
Absolutely.
They're going to do it. I think with Bruce, if they can't get enough, they may wait a little bit because they have another year of control with him. Mm-hmm. And the thing with Bruce is, look at what they're talking about. What Jason Hayward's going to get. They're talking a $300 million player. Mm-hmm. If you look at him and Jay Bruce, there's not that huge of a difference.
No, which is
but
even,
the age
in my opinion,
difference, though.
Yeah, but
there's a significant age difference between the two.
Maybe 3 years.
I mean, 28-year-old versus 25-year-old. I think. Yeah, I mean, you're looking at a 4-year deal. I mean, he's 32 at the end of it. He's 29 at the end of it.
I look at Jay Bruce and I see a guy. This is somebody that just needs the old proverbial change of scenery. I just think he's got to get out of this culture and get somewhere where maybe they talk to him a little bit differently, maybe the approach is a little different, maybe there's just something other than here. But I just think he's never going to be the kind of player here that this franchise envisioned him being. And it's not because of anything going on with him. It's just sometimes it's not a good fit. And I think it's stopped being a good fit here. I really do.
It's hard to explain how. You could write off 2013 because of the knee thing.
Sure.
But 14. But last year he was healthy and he didn't show the power he had. He didn't hit for the average he had. Still plays good defense, and in the game today, his numbers aren't, other than the average, aren't that bad. It's just the power's down. People still haven't realized how different it is than it was 10 years ago when steroids were. 10 guys were hitting 40 home runs.
But his power numbers are good.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, he really is, and I know this is horrible, but he kind of reminds me a little bit of Adam Dunn. I mean, he's going to get you home runs. He's going to get you RBI. No, hang on a second. He's going to get you.
He can play defense.
He doesn't have.
It was just funny that you said this is going to sound horrible.
Well, no. Yeah. He looks. I would have said he looks Dunn. No, but I mean, he doesn't have Dunn's on-base percentage. But he kind of is the same player. He strikes out a lot. He's high risk, high reward. And Dunn made a boatload of money in this business after he left here.
Well, he hit home runs a lot better than Bruce did. He could be dead.
But he's a much more complete
He was a
player.
40 home run, 100 RBI guy for like the last 5 years he was here.
Right.
But I just And John raises a good point. You know, when you get rid of these guys, somebody has to play that position, and they have not done, in my opinion, a very good job of getting players through the system lately.
Sometimes the next man up isn't the best guy.
You couldn't even tell me who the next guy up is.
Yeah.
That guy couldn't even tell you who the next guy up is.
It's probably Jesse Winker. And he's the thing you have to remember about Jay Bruce, when he was in the minor leagues, he was the #1 prospect in baseball.
Mm-hmm.
So everyone's always excited about the guys that are down there, and they think they're going to come up and be great. Well, not all of them are.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, it's
When I was in Tulsa, I was the #1 prospect in sportscast. And I got called up. I was in Tampa, and I was an exception. I delivered. A lot of people don't.
Do you see these guys getting moved during the winter meetings? Do you see it happening during the season? When do you kind of, I guess, the timetable of these guys getting moved?
I think Chapman will be moved at the winter meetings or before. I think there's a good chance that Bruce will be moved at the winter meetings.
Do you think Bronson Arroyo is going to be a Red?
Well, that's a good question, because we just
That would
move
make
on to
that would make the fans a little happy.
Who do you think they're going to
I
get?
mean,
Who do you think
if they have enough to give him enough to come here, people
Right.
would at least feel like he's a decent player. You did something that's going to mean a better team will be on the field.
How old is
next year.
Bronson now?
I think he's
Under 50.
38.
He's under.
He's under 50.
He's under 40.
The thing is,
Over 30, under 50.
when I was doing another podcast with Jamie Ramsey of the Reds, and afterwards we went out to lunch
cheated on us.
at the Holy Grail. And
at
as
you.
we were leaving, Bronson Arroyo was walking in, and I talked to him for a long time about it. And he did say, he was interested in coming back. The Reds have shown some interest. I think it'd be a great move. He's the smartest baseball player I've ever dealt with. He knows more about pitching. I think the thing about those rookie starters, they all had the stuff to be good, but they could not figure out how to get through a
part of
game.
it, right.
He can show you how to get through the game, and he also can show you what to do between starts. He's just so cerebral. I think he'd be a great sign, but in baseball, it always comes down to money. The Reds probably would offer him a minor league deal with some incentives. A contender may offer him a minor league deal with a lot more incentives.
Right.
So I think it'll come down to that. I think there's a chance it'll happen.
Well, here's the other thing, too, and this on a less grander scale than what we're talking about here. But in 2009, that clubhouse was filled with characters, and they needed somebody to come in and show Joey Votto, Jay Bruce, all the other guys there that were young and impressionable, how you play the game. They went out and got rolling. And all of a sudden, Junior was gone, and Dunn was gone, and all of a sudden, it was a clubhouse that had a little leadership to it. That's what Arroyo would do. He did it when he was here before. Plus, I don't know, he blew his arm out, so who knows how good he would be. Right. But he'll eat innings for you if he's healthy, and that's what this team needs, I think, is, you need a guy that can get into the 6th and 7th inning consistently, so you're not blowing your bullpen out.
Yeah, and I think he could. The question of health, the Reds aren't going to sign him unless they're convinced he can pitch. He said he's going to begin his normal routine on December 1st. I think, sometime toward the end of December, early January, he'll have a showcase where people will come down. And if he's throwing 85 miles an hour, I think it's worth the risk, because he can, as you said, you're 1 day a week, or 1 out of 5 until Bailey comes back. You're gonna have a guy that's gonna go 7 innings, and that's what happens when you have all those guys. Those rookies, they don't go as deep. It starts building up innings, and then snowballing, and your bullpen gets beat up. So I think it'd be a good move. Whether it happens or not, I don't know.
What do you think's the starting lineup is going to look? The starting pitcher lineup for the Reds is going to be like next year.
Rotation?
There's 3 or 4 that are 2 or 3 that you can kind of the rotation. I couldn't think of that.
Sorry, that happens, baby.
Yeah, Guess Sclafani starts opening day. That's my guess. That's my prediction.
I would agree with that, except I think, Iglesias.
I was going to. Who do you think has the highest ceiling
of those? Prospectus.
I'll bet you cash money Bailey's not available open day.
Right. I don't think that. I agree with that. Yeah, they're gonna. These are just some. This is just a graphic that Libby made up.
Mascot could. I mean, he looked really. I thought he looked really nice before he got hurt.
I'm really excited about
I didn't want to throw her under the
those guys.
I got asked that question many times on Twitter. And I would always give him a different answer every time because there's so many possibilities.
Play with people.
You cover all your bases. You can go back later and say, "Here, this is the one where I said this is exactly what this."
I was right.
Yeah, it's kind of like how we predict the weather.
You could be a politician, John.
Yeah.
Or a weatherman.
Has Lamb learned how to bunt without hitting the ball in his face yet?
Yeah,
That's a good question. I like Lorenzen too, but he's wildly inconsistent. If you could ever find a certain Zen mode there, I think it'd be good. And then there's the other name that's not there is Robert Stevenson. I mean, if he comes in and pitches well in spring, that could be a guy that could be in that mix next year.
But I think with Lorenzen too, he would be very valuable in the bullpen. And if Chapman gets traded, I don't know if he's ready to close, but if he's in the bullpen, he's probably throwing 98. And I think they have to look at putting some of these guys in the bullpen. Stevenson, I'm guessing they'll wait. I would think he'll be up sometime. But I don't.
Do you think they'll look at Finnegan as a starter in the spring? He looks more like a reliever to me.
Yeah, he's another one where I think maybe he had so much success as a reliever right away.
In the World Series of all places.
Yeah, so I think there's a chance, but at some point they're just going to have to say, hey, some of these guys are in the bullpen.
Yeah.
You know?
Who starts in left field? I mean, really. I mean, it's just. I mean, they've been trying. Honestly, they've been trying. They've been looking for a left fielder since Adam Dunn left here. They've thrown tens of millions of dollars down a hole trying to find a left fielder. Who's going to start in left field?
Oh, if I had on opening day, it's tough. I think maybe Yorman Rodriguez. He's on the roster, and he's out of options. So the thing I would not do, I would not go out and try to get a free agent.
I agree.
I would not try to, it worked out pretty well with Ryan Ludwig for 1 year. Bird was okay last year.
He turned it around, yeah.
He came on late, but and I think they can look at Jesse Winker.
So none of these
Well, they might
guys.
get somebody to trade.
Yeah.
I mean, if they do trade Frazier, if they do, I think of the three guys, Chapman, Frazier, and Bruce, you're probably of those three going to get a major league ready guy more for Frazier than you are for either one of the other two guys. I think.
Well, I think if you're in their position, you might not want to get a major league guy as much as a guy with a higher ceiling that maybe needs a year or some time. Sort of like Suarez. He's a possibility in left field.
Yeah, I was going to ask,
I was waiting to see whether you thought that was a possibility. I mean, they got the Suarez question is sort of complicated. Yeah, I mean, there's certain parts of his game that you definitely want on the field, and then there's other parts that you don't.
He makes too many errors.
Yeah.
Well, the other question that plays into all that is Mesoraco going to be healthy enough to catch? I mean, if he can't catch, if he can't squat, then you've got to look for an alternative for him, and that might be left field.
And I think the other guy that we haven't mentioned is Adam Duvall. He's going to be a lot like Adam Dunn. I mean, he's not going to be a great fielder, but he's going to hit a lot of home runs. Or theoretically, I think he led AAA in home runs last year. He hit 30. He looked decent when he came up, and he's a guy that they were looking for position with. He's a first baseman, so he's not going to play there. They tried him at third when he was in the Giants organization. Wasn't very good there. He was presentable and left. He didn't make any egregious errors. So I think he probably right now if you're looking at a depth chart, he's probably number one on it.
So in the bowels of Great American Ballpark right now, on the eve of Redsfest, what do you think is the prevailing opinion on this 2016 team in terms of wins? I mean, when they get really honest with each other and they're sitting around the table, and you got Dick Williams here, and you got Walt Jocketty there, and you got Bob Castellini here, and you got all these scouts, all these smart guys down there. Do they? And they all get honest with each other. What do you think they're saying?
Oh, they know. They know that 70 wins, it's going to be tough as the roster sits now.
70 wins.
I mean, do you see much improvement from this team from last year?
But they haven't done anything yet, so we don't know if what they.
But it's not like they're going to be trading for something
you're not
going to help this year.
You're not going to get anybody for Chapman or for Bruce. It's going to be like right now, here they are, plug them in.
I mean, I think you could sell 70 wins as 70 wins if you're building towards something new and different, as opposed to where we're just kind of stuck and trying to figure out if we're rebuilding or if we're trying to build for now. I think you can sell that to the fans more, and I think that's the most important part.
When I say 70 wins, I should add that I think that's with the plan to trade Chapman and trade Bruce. I think if you brought the team back right now, you could make an argument that they could play around 500. But that's not the thing to do. You're not going to contend around 500. These guys, all of them, Chapman, Bruce and Frazier, they have a limited time here, so you have to look at getting what you can for them, because realistically, 17 or 18 is when you should be able to compete.
I agree.
Again.
And if you hold on to these guys now, you might play 500 ball, but you're right back in the same boat in 2 years.
Right.
So that's why I say, I know Castanelli falls in love with these guys, and I know he doesn't want to, he's got a business side to worry about as well as baseball. But if I'm him, I'm just saying, you know what? We tried this thing, it didn't work. I listened to the wrong voices and held on to these guys too long. Let's just go and sell the fact that we got a plan, and look, stick with us, and we'll have a lot of Mike, Lacoste and Dave Van Gorder bobblehead nights,
Nice.
And, that's what I'd do.
I'd go to Mike Lacoste bobblehead night.
Sure you would, particularly if they had like the hair there, and the hair just bobbled instead of the head.
Well,
So how does the Mets' success change the way a team needs to look at things? I mean, I don't think anybody coming into the season, outside of maybe the Mets organization, thought the Mets were going to be as good as they were, and they just had a bunch of good young pitching, mature at the right time.
Cespedes, I think him coming in at the end of the season, he kind of sparked that offense.
But any
The
team
offense
can
was
do
dragging.
that. Like, any team can go out and make a deal mid-season to add one bat or a couple players here and there. So coming into an offseason as a team like the Reds, does the Mets' success change your approach in any way?
I think I don't know if it changes your approach, but I think you can make an argument that gives you hope that they have guys that can throw that hard, that are young, that could develop. The other thing with the Mets is they got the catcher, Denard, is that his name?
Travis,
and Syndergaard in trades when they were kind of the rebuilding thing. So I think if you look at it that way, boy, if
for you spark, if we get the right prospect.
Right, and it works out. But it doesn't always. And I think, again, they did well with their trades. I think DeSclafani for Matt Latos was a great trade.
I do too. I think, honestly, everybody in the baseball knew this guy's back was against the wall. But when Jocketty made those trades in July to get what he got to come back, I thought that was terrific. And if in both of those trades, if you only get one guy out of both of those trades that comes to this major league team and makes a difference, that's great, considering everybody knew he had to get rid of him.
Well, the guy in the Cueto trade that we haven't seen yet is Cody Reed.
Right.
He's a left-hander who throws close to 100. He's the guy with Stevenson I think have the highest ceiling.
What about this Kirio Eliason dude from the Giants that was in the league deal? What was his name? It's Kirio Maes. Yeah, what about it? I mean, everybody seems gaga over him, too.
He's another guy. He's 23 years old, throws really hard. To me, looking at their minor league numbers, it doesn't seem like he's as far along in his development as Reed. Reed was really good.
Was this the guy that got hurt a couple of years ago? There was one guy in that deal that had Tommy John a couple of years ago. And
that's Lamb.
Lamb. Okay.
Yeah. No, Reed's the kid. He was at Pensacola last year.
Right. He dominated in AAA, and I think he's 23 years old. He's left-handed, and he throws 98. So I think there's a chance. I think there's a good chance that he's the best guy in that deal. Lamb is what he is. I liked what I saw from him at times, but I think he's a fourth or fifth starter. Reed could be number one or number two guy, and I think that's what they need. They need their pitching to be outstanding to have a chance going forward.
Who comes up? I mean, are we going to? Winker struggled the first half of the season, and then it kicked in for him along about middle of June. Stevenson again hit a kind of a swoon there, and then boom, it kicked in for him. He got to AAA and was throwing some dominant baseball there, and then you got Amir Garrett. And then, Tyler Stevenson was just drafted this year, wasn't he?
Yeah.
So I don't think we'll see him at any time soon. But I think, you raised an interesting scenario. They may get to spring training and say, you know what, Jesse Winker, we might as well just bring him up here and let him hit and just, ride the wave with him. I think that could happen. It really could.
Yeah, I think they have to be open to things like that. I think one of the things that I've seen from the Reds that they don't do things until they have to in a lot of cases. Like they waited with Suarez, since Dick Williams took over, they confirmed that he's going to play left field in spring training. I think that was a no-brainer. He should have been playing left field in September just to see, and then And I think they don't have a tendency to push guys much, and I think now they're in the position what do you have to lose? We saw Garrett up there, another left-hander, throws hard. He's a kid that played basketball at St. John's and then transferred to somewhere else. I can't remember. But he's a big-time prospect, and he's a guy that could move quick. And I think one of the big problems this year was the bullpen. That's what got them in the hole that they never got out of. I think they have to look at all those good arms for the bullpen.
Right. Plus, they're cost-effective. You're not going to go out and drop money like you did on, who was that? Kevin Craig.
And
yeah, I mean, those guys, it was just not well-spent money. But, yeah, I agree with you. If you've got them under control and you can get them effective innings in Major League Baseball, they could eventually become starting pitchers.
Right, and throw it on the 40-man roster, there's very little risk with it. Garrett's on the 40-man roster, so you have to use an option anyway. So, well, why not? But the thing that they did last year, and what happens a lot in baseball, is you have a hole in your bullpen, so you go out and you sign this veteran, which Kevin Gregg was.
Right.
Had success. A guy like that, if he's healthy, he can get in good shape coming into spring training, and he can look great in spring training. That's what Kevin Gregg did.
Right.
And that's what other guys that they'll sign, if you sign guys like that, they can do it, but once the season starts, it's a whole different thing.
Right.
Yeah, I kind of view bullpen guys now kind of how you view running backs in the NFL. Get them for 1 year, or you get them cheap, because you don't really need to spend money on bullpen guys. I feel like you spend money on your starters, on your position players, but bullpen guys, they can be hot 1 year and then they're flame out the next year.
Well, most of them are failed starters anyway, aren't they? By and large.
Basically.
It's like, it's the reality of it is.
There's a little more now that where guys are closers their whole life, like Craig Kimbrell. I don't think he was ever a starter. Chapman should have been a starter. But yeah, by and large, they tried him in as starters.
John, who's the voice on this team? Who's the leader people rally around and listen to?
It was John last year.
Well, the Cardinals have Yachty and Cubs have Rizzo, and we actually lost Pena to the Cardinals, and I thought he was kind of a stabilizer. Wasn't the but who is it? They don't have.
I think it's Frazier. I think Frazier's outspoken.
Is he?
And I think that plays in with Castellini. Castellini loves that personality.
And he's the face of the franchise.
He's for lack of a better term, a rah-rah guy.
He is.
Which you don't see a lot in baseball. So I think that's another factor. They really like that. They like his enthusiasm. They like that he plays hard. I would think he is, and that as we were talking about Arroyo.
Yeah.
If you bring him in, he's right there. But
I think you need guys like that.
But I think Pena. I think he was.
Do you need guys like that when you have a team that you can lead? That's where at this point in time, is that something that sure it would help, but that's really not the thing that you need. Is somebody to make next year's team cohesive. You need to get the talent in the dugout, and then when there's something there that if you make it gel, it can perform and do what you want. I don't think that's a high priority. Certainly you want it, and if to avoid the bottom, losing 100 games, but it's not necessarily the thing you need next year, because Arroyo probably won't be here 2 years, 3 years from now. If he does come next year, he would help them get ready. But
right.
I don't know. The young guys need to be taught the right way, though. Otherwise, they grow into the same situation.
I agree. I agree. I'm just saying. I think the first thing you need to do is get the young guys that you think are going to be the team that you can build around, and then you need to get a leader. But that's it's a chicken egg, I guess, kind of thing. I don't know.
I think what they have to hope is that Mesoraco develops into a leader. Catcher's a position where oftentimes you see leaders. I think they hope it would happen with Bruce, and I think Bruce had in his personality and everything, but when you're hitting 212, it's hard to get on other guys, and
try
he's had 2 bad years.
Let's touch on something really and truly, I think, that is as big as anything we've talked about. Billy Hamilton is fast. Billy Hamilton is exciting. Billy Hamilton is a terrific center fielder, but he can't hit and he can't get on base. What should they, or maybe what they've been doing, what do they got to do with this guy so that he can at least acquit himself to an OBP around 31, 32 and a batting average around 250? How do they get him there? He's not a young guy. He's not a kid. He's not an older, but he's certainly no 19, 18-year-old phenom. What do they do with him?
Well, I think, when he hurt his shoulder, that kind of threw off the plan. They had like this mysterious plan where he was going to go to Southern California and work with someone outside the organization. They wouldn't say who it was.
Pete Rose?
Yeah. I thought it was Juan Pierre, but he doesn't live there. But anyway, I could never find out who it was. And because he hurt his shoulder, he can't start baseball activities until, December 1st, so he could have started the other day. But yeah, I think they just, if he got back to what he did as a rookie, where he hit about 250, but last year became a lost year. He started off so bad, then he got hurt. But in their position, you got to run him out and just hope. And
yeah, I just think that's, unless they fix that, I don't know if any of this other stuff falls into place. You're right. I think the only way he's going to get better is if you play him. But I'm telling you, man, I think
Don't you
right
get the
now on a
impression, John,
contending team, he's like a fourth outfielder.
Don't you think, though, John, that they seem to be set on waiting to see if he can materialize into the player it seems like he might be able to be? I mean, it seems like they're willing to wait.
Well,
and there's such an upside that it might be worth the wait. But
there's no risk in trying that for this year because they're not going to contend. And if he hits 270 and gets on base at a 320 clip, he's a dangerous player.
Absolutely.
The thing that, watching him on a daily basis, his defense is unbelievable.
Yes.
I mean,
his range is
it is so much better than anybody you see.
When you're down there at the ballpark and he gets on base, that's the most. People used to say that when Chapman came in, that was the most exciting thing, and the fans liked it. When I'm there and he gets on base, that's the most exciting time of the ball game because you know that the other team is completely fixed on him being there, and usually in less than an at bat, he's on second or third, and then there's a scoring opportunity. It's the most fun that I have when I go to the ball game with the Reds.
The other thing I thought they should do, I thought they should just make him a right-handed hitter and live with
hitting.
And he wanted to do it. Now, for some reason, they didn't want him to do it, and I think they convinced him not to do it. But I talked to him about this. I remember we were in Detroit, and Suarez at one time was a switch hitter, and he gave it up. And there's other players that have given it up. I think Shane Victorino. And I think just if the player wants to do something, it's going to be easier for him to do. So I would have done that. They're not going to do that.
I think he's so fast coming out of that right-handed batter's box. I don't think it's that much of an advantage of being a lefty. Anyway.
I think that's 3 hits a year or something like that.
Well, and the sabermetric argument is if you're naturally a right-handed batter, why would most pitchers you're going to face are going to be righties. There's a lot more righties. So why would you want to spend 60 to 70% of your time batting in your non-natural hand? It doesn't make any sense to weaken yourself like that.
No.
All I know is this has been stimulating baseball discussion. You talk a lot.
You need water on the set.
I know we need time out. But John Fay, he's at WCPO.com now. We're tickled to death about that because he's with us now. He's one of us. This was a special edition of the Fifth Mascot, but when the season begins, and Mike, you'd know better this than anybody, this show will be back in the...
Be back and better than ever.
Okay, good. Didn't want to put words in your mouth. But we're back when the season begins. Redsfest is this weekend. Tell your friends about it. And again, if you wanted to see this, you joined us midstream, you want to see the whole thing, the entire show is on WCPO.com 24/7, 356. Thank you, Keenan. Thank you, John. Thank you all for joining us today on this hot stove edition of not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, but the Fifth Mascot.